Mic check, 1, 2. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yep, okay. Seems to be good.
Funkier up here than it does out there, but yep, you're good to go.
Here I am. Good morning, everyone. Everyone, hey, someone's awake. I haven't had my coffee yet, so I'm not quite awake. But thank you all for staying for the second day. We have some great content on deck, and we have a great keynote coming up. Just a few quick things. There we go. So most importantly, the free booze and food tonight is at Joystick Game Bar, and the address is here. It's also on the schedule on the website, so please join us. That will be at 7 p.m. And we can see if we'll see if you can beat my high score in Galaga tonight. All right, how's that? So I actually currently have the high score there, so we'll see. So come challenge me to Galaga, have some beer or whatever, and hang out. So for next year, unfortunately, we will not be here for Devnexus. We will be back at the Cobb Galleria, and the reason for that is there's some event called the Super Bowl that's going to be in. Yeah, what is that? I don't know. It's some. I think it's some sports ball or something. Anyways, so that's going to be here over at Mercedes-Benz. But the NFL rents out this entire facility for like the whole month or something. So they basically are like, well, sorry, we know you have a contract and everything, but the NFL is paying us like $1 billion to use the facility for the month. And we're like, yeah, okay, whatever. So anyways, so next year we will be at the Cobb Galleria, and Devnexus will be in the first week of March instead of the third week of February, okay? And with that, next slide, there we go. I would like to turn it over to Kelsey, and you probably heard of a company called Google. He's come from California to tell us something about containers or Kubernetes or, I don't know. I don't use containers, right? I like my apps monoliths, so.
I like monoliths. Monoliths are dope. Good morning. Oh man, some people just got sent here by their manager. I hope you want to be here. All right, so we're going to be talking about containers, but there's this context that we got to set up first. If you're a developer, make as much noise as you can. Okay. Where's my operations folks? You left them all to do deployments, huh? We're going to the conference. The nice thing about being a developer, we get to build things. So I built a framework, and it's amazing. This framework really allowed me to be super productive. So before I jump into my keynote, I want to share the framework with you all. Is that cool? All right, cool. All right, so the nice thing about this framework, like when I released it, it just took off. So one thing I like to do, I show my wife. It's like, babe, I'm like popular on the internet. And I show her things like Twitter stats and GitHub stats. Oh, come on, Wi-Fi, who's checking email? If you're checking email, I need the Wi-Fi to do this presentation. There's no slides, so I need Wi-Fi. So close your Outlook Express, whatever, enterprise stuff, shut it down. No internet access? We pay for internet access. What's that?
There's a captive portal.
A captive portal? Okay, let's see. I think we ran out of minutes on the Wi-Fi. It's that prepaid Wi-Fi. All right, you know what you have to do? You have to tether. We're going to do this demo on tethered Wi-Fi. There's a conference guy like, damn it, I thought you tested it. What happened? Did it work?
Great success.
Let's see. All right, the beacon to the internet. If Google can't be reached, it's definitely your fault. All right, so we're going to have to do tethering. This is always fun, so we're going to up it a notch. This is really silly of me. Oh, boy. Okay. All right, we're tethered. Let's see what LTE stands for. All right. Isn't that a dope live demo? Just connect to the Wi-Fi? All right. So you got to impress your partner. So you got to show her your GitHub projects, right? She's like, what's that? I was like, it's GitHub. And I'm trending, okay? So this made me really, really proud. I released this framework, and all of my peer developers and this guy really, really dig this thing. So let's see how we're doing. So we're still trending. We're still doing good. All right. So I'm going to introduce this to you all. Be patient. So the name of this project is called No Code. And I think it's the best way to write and secure your applications, okay? You can build anything you want. And some of you should be doing no code, especially if you don't have a good idea about what the project is. You should probably try out this framework. So I'm going to walk through this. So no code is the best way to write and secure reliable applications. Write nothing, deploy nowhere. Now, like all great projects, I have documentation because this can get complicated. So getting started. First, very important, you start by not writing code. I visit people all the time, and their IDE is open. Something's wrong. So you see the code. It's beautiful. Everyone can agree that the formatting is just right. So this is just an example, but imagine it doing anything you want, okay? And if you want to add new features, the possibilities are endless, okay? Imagine the code reviews. All right, so now that you've not done anything, it's time to build the application, okay? That's how you do it. I know some of you are curious. Like writing a language is hard, but the compiler is much harder. So it took me a little bit while to get this part right. So that's it. So you should get the following output. If you see anything else, call me. Something's wrong. All right, so now that you've done all this work, you got all your requirements, you got this thing built, now we got to think about deploying. So this keynote is going to be about deploying things. So how do you deploy your no-code project? All right, so you still haven't done anything, so it's time to deploy your application. You're going to run the following command. Anyone can guess what the command is going to be. All right. You got it. You guys learn quick. This is going to be a great talk today. So it's that simple. All right, so once you have the applications, if you need to scale it, it's very consistent, this framework. Everything you can assume what you want to do, right? I know. All right, so if you want to contribute, I know all of you are anxious to get started with this. You don't at all. Now, for some reason, I have 266 open pull requests. So this caused a bit of a problem, so I had to up the ante. I had to add a contributor's guide, because people obviously didn't get the bottom of the README. So all changes are welcome as long as no code is involved. If you run into a bug, please file an issue and explain how that was even possible. All right? So that's no code. Now the serious thing about no code is that people start writing code before you even tell them what you want. How many people work with a person like that? Like, yeah, you're like, why are you typing right now? We haven't even said anything. No, I got it, okay? So there's a lot of things that already exist, and you should probably look at them first. And that's kind of what this message around no code is. And there's a lot of hype. A lot of people will measure projects by the number of GitHub stars. I have 15,000 GitHub stars. Anyone want to use this in production? Yes, raise your hand, because if you're writing, there's some reasons not to deploy any code. All right, so let's get serious. So we're going to be talking about, and it shouldn't be a big deal, but it is. So there's this world of containers. How many people make noise if you think containers are awesome? I have no clue why you think they're awesome. To me, the container is just the final, it's finally that one contract. Anyone remember like the war ear files? How many Java people here? Remember the promise? Like you just take the war files and just deploy it, boom, it all works. Where's the ops people? That lie is what led to DevOps, all right? Group therapy for system administrators. It's when we get together and like, what are they thinking? You can't put that much stuff in a zip file. Just because you call it a war file doesn't mean anything. So we're going to be talking about this container as a better contract. So the contract between you, the developer, and the infrastructure. And until now, there has not been a great contract. It's been, here's my code, run it for me, but we're missing pieces. All right, so I'm going to try to explain this in a little bit more detail. How many people have ever used build packs? How many people know what a build pack is? Oh, you don't know what a build pack is? All right. Well, one of our sponsors, who was it? They invented the build pack, Heroku. You know what Heroku is? There's this idea that you have a source tree, and you go in that source tree and you say, hey, run what's here. And most developers are like, wow, look, it's running in the first 5 minutes. This is great. All of operations should work this way. Give you my source code, you run it. The problem is most people don't know what their dependencies are. So we have a broken contract, right? This is where we spend most of our time doing deployments. So when we think about this broken contract, I'm going to show you what it is. So here's a simple application. It's a GitHub webhook, right? You check something into GitHub, and ideally I want that notification to come to my webhook so I can maybe clone the repo, do a build or something like that. So this is straightforward. Now we got a couple of problems here. We're going to build the app. We're going to see if it works, okay? So this is just a Go app. So I'm going to say go build. I'll just build it here. Make sure that it works. I'm actually going to build it for Linux. And this is what the contract looks like when you try to give your code to a system administrator and you don't understand the full puzzle. So we'll say go build. We'll do it for Linux. So go os equals Linux. And what we're going to do is going to copy this binary to the server. This is what most people are spending their time doing. Who has a CI/CD project in flight right now? Yes, you're just copying. You're running bash scripts in a certain order. I sit in meetings and people are debating, what should we use, Jenkins, TeamCity? It's like, dude, bash scripts in a certain order. That's all you're doing. We're trying to get bits on this. So what we're going to do now is try to get these bits on this. So we have this GitHub webhook. Very simple thing that we need to do. So I'm going to show you what it feels like when we don't have a great contract. So gcloud, SCP, GitHub webhook. Oh, stop auto-completing. All right, and we're going to move this to a server. So gcloud, I think it's called Ubuntu. So SCP here to Ubuntu to my home directory. All right, this is as simple as it should be. What, that doesn't work? Compute. All right, very dramatic, I know. So we're going to copy this binary over, and we're going to try to run it. And this is what the life of us, oh, I'm doing this over my AT&T plan. I just thought about that. This ain't as smart as I would hope, but we should be fine. We're not going to do that too many times. All right, gcloud, compute, SSH, Ubuntu. Oh, autocomplete. All right, so let's go into this machine. So what we're going to do now is attempt to run it. So here's my code. Just run it for me. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, I'm just going to, you should always do everything as root, right? Best practices. You know you do it, right? You go straight to production, just like root, man. I don't got time for this permissions thing. All right, so the goal of this is it comes up, listens to port 8080, gets a webhook, clones a repo, off it goes. All right, so we hit enter here. And it's like, oh, there's a git version mismatch. The application wants 2.11, 2.14. Now think about how this conversation works out at your organization. Who wins this war? Do you end up using whatever the sysadmin tells you? Or do you get a VP exception and the sysadmin figures out how to put this version on the server? Any VPs in here? It's like, yeah, I closed 7 of those tickets yesterday. So here's the problem. This contract is really loose. I have no idea why you need git version 2.11. My server has 2.14. And honestly, I don't care. Like, this is not part of the contract I want to deal with. What I want to deal with is just the kernel and the basics of the operating system. I want you, the developer, to just reconcile this whole thing. There's one ecosystem where this has worked out well, the mobile device. Anyone ever use a wizard on their mobile device? Like you ever go to the App Store and like click and install JBoss? You don't do that. That's unacceptable. You get the full contained app, and it runs. We don't waste time with all of these dependencies. But for some reason, people think this is what we should do in the world of compute. Let the provider take care of it. The contract is too loose. So what do I suggest instead? So the premise for this talk is that I think the virtual machine will continue to fade away, and we will all just leverage a container image, even if you're doing something like serverless. So serverless is this new hot trend where people think that they're going to write a function, and your code's just going to be fine forever. Anyone ever write like a Lambda function? Anyone have Lambda update the underlying runtime and your function stop working? Wow, you haven't been using it long enough. It's amazing when it happens. You can't call anyone. There's no servers to reboot. Some of you missed it. You'll get it at lunch. So what we want to do is talk about extending the contract. So we're going to go through a couple of systems. One, as a developer, I think it should be our jobs to specify the entire contract. So this is saying, hey, I want to build my app with Go version 1.10. I also want to have Debian 9.3 because that's where I tested my Git version. And I'm going to install Git and package the whole thing in a container. So we're not passing around war files. We're not talking about the JVM. We're not talking about JBoss. We're saying everything. libc, the Git version. I do not want to have a conversation on the server side. And I think all providers will eventually say, you know what? The contract has to be that clean. You have to give me your full intention, and I will only give you syscalls. That's it. So whatever you put in here, I'm going to ship. Anyone ever built a Docker container before? Oh, it's easy. I'm scared to do it on my phone, though. Because you typically download the entire internet before you can run your app. But we're going to try it, OK? Because I actually like it's like almost the start of the month, so you would check? Check the Wi-Fi again? In the middle of the live demo? I don't know. I think we're going to just roll like this, OK? So we're going to do Docker build. So I'm going to just show you so you understand what this contract is. All right. So the goal here is I have this webhook. It has all its dependencies, including the Git version that it needs. So I don't ever have to fight any server or platform. So I'm just going to build it here. Please be not slow. All right. Come on. Yes. Thank you, cache. Caching can be good. All right. So I already have the internet on my laptop. So all I had to do was copy in my binary. So at this point, I now have this image that I can reference. Now, I think this is going to be important because I think all your workflows are going to eventually change. In your IDE, when you hit save, it's going to spit out one of these one day. And it's going to put it somewhere. That's it. That will be the full conversation. So let's say you wanted to use Heroku. What would the process be now that I have this container image? Anyone? Yell it out. Let's click on their site. Your sponsorship dollars are going an extra mile right now, Heroku. So we click on this. And in order to get my container image here, I actually need to push it to Heroku. The same container image that I built on my laptop that I can test locally. And then what I'm going to do here is just tag it. So per their documentation, I can just tag my image with their registry and push it there. So let's try it. So Docker push. We'll grab this. Here we go. Now, the nice thing about this approach is I don't need to go learn their build pack tool. I don't need to guess what's in their build pack, and I don't need to care when they update the build pack. I'm going to give them my entire contract. Oh, boy. OK. Please have the rest. Yes. All right. I think that's enough. OK. I had that Control-C ready. All right. So now I'm going to grab this URL. I'm going to make it happen. And then what we're going to do is we're going to venture across as many of these platforms as we can to see if they work. So we'll grab this. We'll hit there. I think it's already in place. Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do now is try to see if this thing works. So I have this container image, works on my laptop. You ever say that to someone? It can be true. And what we want to do now is run it. So I'm new to Heroku, but I'm going to try anyway. Let's do this. All right, here we go. So we got some logs going. All right, let's see if things are working. So we're going to try to send a request. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just probably hit some rate limiting from GitHub. You know, if you ever want to get your GitHub stats up, this is how you do it. All right. I'm very productive this week. So ideally, we push our changes, and it calls the webhook. The contract is super tight. There is no, hey, what build packs do you support? There is nothing in the background to worry about. I don't care about their updates as much because I'm only dealing with the kernel. But everything else comes into this world. So it works in Heroku. Now let's try a different platform. So we're going to take the same container image and keep going. So now what I want to do is think about another platform. So there's this serverless thing. Make noise if you think serverless is the future. Oh, some sad developers in here. You're afraid they're going to take your job. So we're going to try this serverless platform called Riff. Anyone have heard of Project Riff? It's pretty dope. The nice thing about Riff is it says, what's a function? A function should have a tighter contract than some, just a snippet of code. So in this case, Riff will let me actually use my app as is. So the same main.go, the only contract, just like with Heroku, is I just need to listen or accept a specific port. So once I have this container, all I need to do now is refer to it. So what I can do here, I'm going to show you the value of why we're doing all of this. I can describe it as a function. So hey, I have this container image. It works. It knows how to do Git webhooks. Has everything it needs in there. I just want you to turn it into a function. So what makes something serverless? Have we came to agreement on what makes something serverless? Some things people like about serverless is that you start at 0 and you scale up based on some event coming in. Then a cloud provider, if they're hosting it for you, can just charge you based on invocation. So we're going to try that. What we're going to do is we're going to send this to Kubernetes. So Riff is built on top of Kubernetes. And we're just going to give it our function. And the first thing that Riff is going to do is stage a deployment for me and get it ready for request. So kubectl get deployments. So as a developer, I keep a simple abstraction. Oh, it's already doing stuff because I have this in the background. Let me stop. And we'll see what happens here. Oh, it started running already. Let me just slow it down for a second. So what should happen in the serverless world is that when we're running these things, if there's nothing to do, it should reclaim that compute and give me my resources back and scale to 0. So this is set to do it within 1 minute. So we'll let that work. kubectl get ns -- show labels. All right, that looks good. All right, so this should shut down. And what we want to do is have this thing kick in as soon as there's some work to do. All right, so this should shut down. Please. People are watching. OK, now it's terminating. All right, so now what we need to do is get the URL for this function. kubectl get ingress. And we're going to take this webhook. And what should happen is this should actually, we're going to do our gateway. So Riff runs in its own namespace. And if I use this IP, what we can do is have GitHub hit this instead. So we'll change this out. I tested this in my hotel room this morning, so I'm very confident it will work. And the thing we care about here is kubectl get topics. And there's a talk later on today that would actually explain to you a lot about what's happening underneath the hood here. So I'm going to not go too much into the details. So we have a topic, so we need to get the topic name, so it's GitHub. So what we want to do now is when a change comes in, invoke this, and call the right topic so our webhook responds. So we'll update this webhook. Everything looks right, and we'll see what happens. All right? So ideally, in real time, if I hit refresh and send another event, this thing should do its thing. Anyone know the problem here? This is the cold start problem. So all those serverless fans out there, you'll have users clicking on your website waiting for this cold start process. But the nice thing, though, is that these images are pre-pulled. They will launch and actually fulfill the web request. So let's make sure that this is actually working. So I'm actually using a bit of the Kubernetes stuff here. So kubectl logs f-c, and this is going to be called the GitHub webhook. Oh, is it gone already? Nope. It's almost like I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I know what it is. So we have to give it a container name. All right, so we can actually see the logs. And notice this problem here. Signature missing. The unfortunate bit, though, is the part of the contract that's not packaged with us is the API calls. So unfortunately, Rift does not pass down the HTTP headers given by the provider. So if you're using this serverless platform, and you'll see all the serverless platforms has a different API, your code will run, but there's no guarantee you'll get all the data that you actually need to make it happen. So I think there's going to be a problem when we continue to split APIs this way. We probably need clear semantics. I think HTTP should be it, but everybody wants these custom strings or custom handlers. But I don't know if you're going to have enough semantic information to actually build generic tools in the serverless world. So one fix that I like to do here is to just run it as a pure container. And I think this is where all of these platforms are going to go. And we're going to see something that you're going to be able to do interesting once you have kind of this container native pattern versus trying to reuse things like build packs or function. Let's just be more explicit here. So I'm going to remove this. kubectl delete -f functions. And when I delete this, we're going to delete the deployment. All right, so now that this is gone, we're going to go into the native world. Now, once we do this, we're going to be able to actually get a few more benefits. We're going to actually be a little bit more explicit about what our intentions are. So I have a couple of deployments here. One is my webhook, v1. I'm reusing the same container image, and I'm just telling Kubernetes to keep track of it. And my trade-off here, I'm just going to run it for a long time. So kubectl apply deployments v1. Now, once this starts running, we can actually start to do something interesting. So here, it's running. It does all the things you'd think it will do. Let's make sure that it actually works. All right, we'll grab this. And now that we're in native container land, I'm going to show you where things I think get interesting. That should work. Like, where do you save this? There we go. All right, so let's make sure this works. And we'll hit refresh here. So I'm going to leave these up. And we're going to talk about what you get when you actually leverage the platform in its entirety. Here we go. And you want to see the errors in my ways. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so we'll let these come out. And let's just make sure it works. So let's make some changes. Again, I'm going to spam GitHub a little bit. And we should see hopefully, this thing start getting traffic. Great. So it's cloning. So now we're in this native container world, and what I'm going to do is deploy a new version side by side, and we're going to talk about how you control this. So as a developer, you do the right thing, and you just deploy whatever you want. It doesn't matter what folks think. It'll eventually work out. So one thing that's missing here is visibility. I have no idea what this thing is doing. So what I'm going to do is add a new component called Istio. I think there's a track here, or at least a talk or two about Istio. What we're going to do is enable it for this particular namespace. And what I want Istio to do for me is give me some visibility into metrics and logs about what's going on here. So what I'm going to do now is turn that on. And the way you do that is we enable it per namespace. So I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to restart the container. And what we will do now in the newer versions of the stack is we'll actually inject this thing automatically for you. So we'll do this. We'll delete this particular pod. And you see that there's only one of these things in here. And once it's deleted, it should come back up, and it should have 2 of 2. So now we actually have the Istio framework in here. So what do we get when this happens? Well, what we end up with is a dashboard that's collecting all of our metrics for all the requests that are coming in. So now that we have this, what we call a sidecar, the sidecar is now able to meter all the requests that are coming in and send it to a central metrics collector. And I also get a bit of HTTP tracing. There's only one hop here, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. And once I have this in place, I can actually start to do things like tracing. And we can make some assumptions here because I know that your app has everything it needs, but I can also bolt on other containers that add new functionality. And that functionality is called Istio, and it grabs everything coming out of your container because we know that it's fully complete. We add another one, and we start sending this data up. So once we have this in place, we're going to deploy the second version, and we're going to watch how we can start to control this. So kubectl, apply. We're going to deploy version 2. Now we have a bit of a problem, though. How do we control which one of these apps gets the HTTP traffic? All right, so we'll leave these both up. So we have a bit of a problem here. They're both seeing traffic. It's alternating back and forth. Let's run the logs here. All right, so we're going to monitor both the log streams, and we'll see how we control this. Oh, did I delete it? Oh, my goodness. Here we go. All right, so both of them are now getting traffic, and this is a bit of a problem. But now that I have this sidecar component, we can actually start to leverage the API. So one way that I use the API is by talking to it. So what I've done is I've wired up my Google Assistant to the Istio API, and now that we have this set of constraints in place and it's all API driven, we should be able to talk to this thing. So let's try that really quickly. Demo gods, please continue to be on my side. OK, Google, talk to Istio.
Take a look at these results.
That's not what I wanted. Talk to Istio.
OK, let's get the test version of Istio Mesh. Hello.
Hello.
Looks like you have a large crowd here. I guess I should warn you. I'm only at version 0.5. I hope the demo gods are on your side.
I hope so, too. All right, so the first thing we need to do now that we have these self-contained containers and we have the sidecars in place, we need to start giving them some definition. And I think all platforms will have this. We actually see this going into Cloud Foundry as we speak. There's been pull requests in their platform. Once you have this kind of control plane, we can start to rethink what these serverless or fast, what Roku or App Engine can do, because now we can actually start to work at the application level. So what we want to do is stop traffic from going to both of these, and ideally send traffic to only one, which is V1. So what we want to do is reroute traffic all to V1. All right, so wake up the phone. Reroute all GitHub traffic.
What version should I route the traffic to?
V1.
Rerouting all GitHub traffic to version V1 of the GitHub webhook.
All right, so you notice here that V2 is no longer, oh, you better not be getting traffic anymore, because it wouldn't be as cool if it doesn't work in front of people that will judge me on Twitter later. Just make sure we're getting logs for the right one. That's V2. Like, stop getting traffic. All right. No. It's embarrassing. Let's see what's going on. Git route. It's not cool when you have to go to backup. All right, let's delete these. Oh, I didn't clean up. All right, pretend you don't see this part. This video, we can always edit this part out. All right, good. Okay, let's try it again like it didn't happen. All right, so we got traffic going to both. Reroute all GitHub traffic.
What version should I route the traffic to?
V1.
Rerouting all GitHub traffic to version V1 of the GitHub webhook.
Yes, it stopped. Stay stopped. This was like to be an op.
Say that again?
Oh. Oh boy. Okay. Now, one of the cool things about a framework like this, and we're about to wrap up here, is there are cases where in production, you want to actually send production traffic to the new version to actually figure out like all the bugs. Usually you can't do this completely in integration, but we don't want our customers to see it. We just want the traffic to be mirrored to both of the processes while they're up. So what we want to do now is just mirror traffic to both of them at the same time and only take the response from one of them, okay? So let's try that. Mirror all GitHub traffic.
What version of the GitHub webhook service should I mirror traffic to?
V2.
Mirroring GitHub traffic to GitHub webhook V2.
Thanks.
I gotta admit, that was pretty dope.
And with that, I'd like to end the presentation. Thank you.
I gotta
Frontier. One day. Frontier. I tried to picture clusters of information as they moved through the computer. What did they look like? Ships, motorcycles. Were the circuits like freeways? I kept dreaming of a world I thought I'd never see. And then, one day, I got in.